Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to Our Issues Birmingham. I am so happy to have this segment being taped with three of my good friends, Lance Taylor, Ryan Brown, and Jim Dunaway from the next round. Welcome to the show.
It's always good to be here, Tommy. I mean, it's football season's here. We come see Tommy, right?
That's right.
I've always wanted to come to your living room. This is fantastic.
I know. Look what you've done with the place.
So,
Yeah.
See what if you do something long enough, you know that.
I do know that.
I mean,
yeah.
you changed your whole shtick, and
We
look
did.
what happened. You
I
landed
know.
on your feet.
Yeah, about that.
And
Amazing.
We're still eating, Tommy.
I do think we've done this like 10 years with you. Is that about right?
It is exactly right. Yeah. 10 years. And we're still
crazy.
speaking.
I know.
And none of you have been to jail yet.
That's right. Thanks to you.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
So, just so you know, we are taping before tonight's football games that open the season. And so Saturday's games of Auburn's opening and Alabama's opening will not be broadcast until the day after. So don't hold that against us. But what are you thinking about this season? What do you see? I'll tell you one thing that's being told to me all the time, and I hear it, and I even researched it, and I didn't see it. And before we start talking about Alabama and Auburn, everybody says Georgia has got a lame schedule. I looked at the schedule. Is it that lame?
It's pretty lame. I can't help it, but they're going to be favored at least right now on paper by double digits in all 12 regular season games. And like Vegas has a win total for different teams, and theirs is 11.5. So you can bet, are they going to win less than 11.5 games or win more? So Vegas thinks based on that, they're going to go undefeated again in the regular season, which is amazing because that would be 3 consecutive years undefeated in the regular season in the SEC.
Well, Vegas said that. They also put Donald Trump at over under 273.
Look at Tommy go political. I mean, where'd that
Are
come
we
from?
talking weight?
What?
Yes, you didn't know that?
No, but I would take the over 270.
Yeah.
Well, he weighed in at 215. How's that
No,
possible?
he did.
Well, that's what they reported. Don't ask
That's
me.
kilograms.
Now, lame is an 80s terminology. I remember when schedules were lame. Then they became cupcakes. Now we just call them cakey. And I do think Georgia's schedule is a little cakey. It is
But-
filled with some easy games.
All offseason, I've defended this one part of Georgia's schedule, okay? All offseason, I've tried to bring this up when this subject has come up. Georgia had Oklahoma scheduled for a game in Athens. And the SEC, because Oklahoma is coming to the conference, asked them to cancel that series so that it wouldn't affect the future scheduling because the return game for Georgia was a couple of years later. So the Georgia and Oklahoma complied and they canceled that game. So that it wouldn't be a ton better, but they were supposed to play Oklahoma. Now, as bad as Oklahoma was last year, I don't know how much that helps, but they lost. It's still cakey. They lost Oklahoma and replaced it with Ball State. So I will defend them on that a little bit.
But although they're a brand, they still would have been a double-digit favorite over Oklahoma.
Okay, but let me continue to be fair to them. There are only 4 games of that schedule they control, right? They're out of conference games. The SEC controls the rest of it. They don't control the other games. They were going to play Oklahoma in one of them. They play Georgia Tech annually in one of them. They can't help it that Georgia Tech's terrible. That's a rivalry. Georgia can't get out of that game. So, I mean, it's not really Georgia's fault. It is not a great schedule, but it's not entirely their fault it's not a great schedule.
I'll go full circle. Georgia's schedule is lighter than Donald Trump.
Well, with that, before we talk about what everybody wants to hear about, which is Auburn or Alabama, who besides Georgia and Alabama should we look for as a potential surprise in the SEC?
Do you know how to get to College Station, Texas?
Really?
The guy right there close to you thinks this could be a breakout year for Jimbo Fisher.
I have always thought since they gave him his contract, the original contract was 10 years, $75 million guaranteed. I was like, I know the guys won a national championship. They are overpaying. Then they gave him an extension, and now he's one of the highest paid. Well, I guess at that point he was too, but now he's making $9-10 million a year, and he really hadn't done anything to earn his money. But I do believe with him bringing Bobby Petrino in, the former Arkansas coach, as his offensive coordinator, with what they've got.
Nice Italian boy. Just saying.
Yes, you recognize them from a mile away, don't you, Tommy?
Yes, vowels. We're always looking for the vowels.
The skill guys they've got, I think this could be an interesting year. A&M gets Alabama at home. So you've got, to me, it's kind of muddled at the top. Everybody thinks it's Alabama and LSU, but I would throw A&M up there with them.
I would suggest on the Eastern Division side that you could look at Kentucky. Yeah, they got a new
I
offense.
thought we would ever have that conversation.
I know. But Mark Stoops has had them in contention, and they've always been so pedestrian on offense. They've got a offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, that came from Lance's favorite team, the LA Rams. So he's an NFL guy. They just got a transfer quarterback in, Devin Leary from NC State, which I don't know if these two agree, but I think he's an upgrade from what they had last year, who got drafted, Will Levis, the first pick of the second round by the Titans. I think it's a quarterback upgrade. I think Kentucky finally will have just enough offense to pair with that defense that they could probably beat everybody but Georgia in the East.
Georgia and everyone else. Kentucky's a nice pick, but that's why Brown wins the Pyramid of Optimism Award every year. He's got these littered all over the place. It's Georgia and nobody else is close.
Kentucky's problem is they play both Georgia and Alabama, and those are probably two. And they got to obviously play Tennessee and Florida and everybody else.
Yeah, miracle year, they would win one of those two.
Yeah, but I mean, if they're 10-2, that's what I'm
Still a
talking
good
about.
year.
Yeah.
Do you really mean it's Alabama and Georgia and there's nobody else?
No, there's Georgia and nobody else. And then when you get to the West, it's a lot more competitive. It's Alabama, it's LSU, it's Texas A&M.
Yeah, LSU's going to be really good this year.
And what makes you say that?
Well, so Brian Kelly, and we talked about this earlier on our show, The Next Round, this week. Brian Kelly's probably the best active coach that is yet to win a national championship. He was a little limited when you look at the academic restrictions with Notre Dame and the athletes he brought in. We were there in 2012 in Miami where they were undefeated playing Alabama for the national championship. They played Alabama again in the college football playoff. They played Clemson in the college football playoff. I mean, they've done things under Brian Kelly that Texas, USC, Florida, schools like that haven't done. And now he's got an elite program with elite athletes, and it's year two. He wins the SEC West in year one. They're going to be better this year. So LSU is going to be a team to reckon with.
We'll see. Don't go away. This is Our Issues Birmingham. Great conversation. We're going to get to where your heart is in just a minute. Time will tell. We will see. Don't go away. We'll be right back. This is Our Issues Birmingham. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We've been talking generally about the SEC, and that's where our hearts are. So let's just zone in on, speaking of cupcakes, Auburn opens with Massachusetts. I think they got named the worst team in the country, and then they pulled off a victory in their first outing.
You want to blow your mind?
Yeah,
They
go
won.
ahead.
They won in week 0 at New Mexico State. That was their first road win since October of 2018. Do you know how long ago that seems? I mean,
It's only 5 years
it's
ago.
only 5 years. It's taken them 5 years
Did you pick that game?
I did not pick that game, but I did watch a little bit of that game because we were so limited on week 0 games to watch. But they've got a quarterback that played at Clemson for 3 years. I can't say his name. Don't even ask me. I won't be able to say his name at the end of the year. It's one of those crazy Samoan mixed with a little Asian maybe.
A lot of consonants.
in weird places.
But the kid can run, and they scored 41 points on the road against New Mexico State. So I'm not saying that, like, Auburn doesn't have anything to worry about in this game. They're going to win the game, but there could be some interesting moments.
But obviously that game's already been played as this is making it to air. So as you look forward, he's going back in time. Auburn's next trip is out to Berkeley, California for Cal in week 2. Now, does it get a little bit more interesting there for Auburn? Probably so. But really, Auburn doesn't get challenged until when? Until they get to the SEC, because their out-of-conference schedule's pretty cakey back to Georgia's.
You say that. I mean,
schedule.
Cal is a team that lost one possession games to USC last year, to UCLA, and I think to Oregon on the West Coast in year 1, second week.
That's a great point. Now, if this is one of those game shows, I think I'd get voted off the set right now. He just put me in my place.
No, I really think Cal's probably going to be like a 7-point underdog. Everybody's going to say SEC against a Cal team that's probably going to fire their coach at the end of the year. just watch out.
What a great show, Tommy. If at that point you hit a button and I would get ejected off the set because LT won the battle over the Cal discussion, that would have been fun and funny.
So we're talking on Sunday after that Massachusetts game on Saturday. But as an Auburn fan, we have low expectations, always. That way we're not disappointed. Alabama fans, on the other hand, have extremely high expectations, and they get disappointed a lot if they even don't beat someone by 60 points. Is Hugh Freeze going to bring what I anticipate he's going to bring to Jordan-Hare Stadium?
I think he's a great coach. I mean, right now,
And is Cadillac still going to be running around?
Yeah, Cadillac will be running around. He's good. You got to have that the guy that knows the program. And Cadillac was the glue that held it together last year. But you look at Nick Saban, you look at Kirby Smart, Brian Kelly that I mentioned, and then it becomes, is it Mark Stoops at Kentucky or is it Hugh Freeze at Auburn? I think Hugh Freeze is no.
You giving up on Lane?
These guys like Lane. I think Hugh Freeze is a better coach than Lane Kiffin. I think if you asked Ole Miss fans, they would say, we wish Hugh never would have called the prostitutes up. Yeah. We wish we still had him.
How many times has that sentence been uttered?
You mean on a university phone?
Well, yeah, probably was not the best choice.
Now, you remember when Lane Kiffin, landed on the tarmac, the handed this kid to him and said, "Hey, make sure you get a burner phone, coach."
This is where the old broadcaster in me says allegedly.
Allegedly, right?
3 times, just so if we're ever in court, I said allegedly.
I would say this about Hugh Freeze, though, if you're an Auburn fan, what should excite you is he's always gotten I feel like, the best play out of his quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back to Ole Miss and look at Bo Wallace and Chad Kelly that played under him, and now Chad Kelly's still drawing a paycheck in the CFL. I think he just signed a new 3-year deal up there. But he's not an NFL quarterback. Bo Wallace is a coach somewhere. Then Malik Willis at Liberty. I feel like he's always been able to pull the best out of quarterbacks. So that, I think, makes you feel like he's going to get that out of Peyton Thorne and Robbie Ashford.
And your greatest coaches are great people. They organize well. They lift people up. That's what Nick Saban does in Tuscaloosa. The best coaches are really managers of people. And I think Hugh does a wonderful job of managing people.
Well, does your heart ache just a little bit for Robbie Ashford? I mean, I believe that Coach Freeze picked the right starter.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like there's just a part of me that feels like Robbie got kind of a...
Yeah, I don't know.
He
was the starter last year. I think he was given every opportunity to win the job.
And you got to remember, it's a business now.
Yeah.
These kids get paid, and the coaches are getting paid a ton of money, and you got to win or you're going to get fired.
And truthfully, my heart aches for Bo Nix that the program got to the point it had to get to where he left the school that he loves and has to go to Oregon to finish up his career. That's who I feel bad for.
And that's the guy.
And take $3 million from Nike.
That never hurt anybody.
But in retrospect, Bo is a
And
guy.
they have great uniforms.
Yeah. I'm a capitalist. I don't know about you guys.
But Bo's a guy that could start for both teams in state this year, I believe. I know he would start for Auburn. I think he would start for Alabama.
Probably would start for Alabama.
Mel Kiper has him as a first-round pick right now.
You're kidding me.
No.
And we had him sitting on the bench.
Y'all ran him out.
Wow, not sitting on the bench. He was starting. You only benched him for one game.
Not at the end of the Georgia State game.
Well, I mean, that was the one time.
So what are we looking for? A good running game? We're pretty deep in the running back
Both
world.
schools are. Yeah, Alabama and Auburn. I think that's probably the strength of both offenses.
Are we going to see more
back.
passing out of Auburn, or we're going to be on the ground more, you think?
I think, and these guys I think will agree, Hugh Freeze has been a tempo guy, played fast in the past. I think he's going to be a little bit more deliberate this year with his offense. Slow it down a little bit. Slow it down, maybe not run as many plays, try to shorten the games a little bit to where maybe they don't have to score as many points.
Yeah, and he's got an experienced quarterback. Peyton Thorne is the guy we were talking about that transferred from Michigan State. So he's been a 2-year starter in the Big Ten, which is the closest thing to the SEC. I think they're going to be more run-based early on, especially with Jarquez Hunter being...
He picked up some good offensive linemen.
He did?
Yeah.
That's somewhere where they have not recruited well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, we shall see, or we will have seen, shall we say, in TV. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back and talk about the other side of the state. Don't go away. This is Our Issues Birmingham. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We're talking about the subject matter that's near and dear to every person that lives in Alabama, and that is football, and especially SEC football. It's time has arrived. So, why does Nick Saban hold back letting us know who's going to be a starter? I mean, we're taping on a Thursday before a game on a Saturday, and we still don't know, do we?
No, I wish they kept this stat, though, Tommy. I want to know about the finishers. I don't want to know about the starters. I want to know who's finishing the games. I want to know who this little coach speak for you. But I want to know who's in there in the fourth quarter. I don't care who's taking the first snap. I want to know who's taking the snaps in the fourth quarter. So I don't need a depth chart. Just show me the tape in the fourth quarter.
The person that's going to be in there in the fourth quarter is the person who performed well in the first quarter.
Yeah, maybe. So what good is that piece of paper then? As I defend Nick Saban here after 17 years and 187 wins, 10 SEC championships, and 6 national championships.
I think what has happened here, Tommy, for the first time in his career, he didn't release a depth chart because the whole talking point in the offseason has been, who is the quarterback going to be? I really don't think these coaches are sold on who the quarterback's going to be for week 2 against Texas. I think they want to go out. These guys play against Middle Tennessee State. Whoever plays the best probably will be your starting quarterback.
Is that cakey?
Who, Middle Tennessee State? Yeah, that is cakey.
No, I say
Texas
cakey.
is not.
They beat the hell out of Miami in Miami last year.
They did. Right. They did do that.
Yeah, but yes, it's cakey. But I really don't think this coaching staff is like, gun to head, I've got to have this one guy out there. I think they're all over the place.
But they could be they're not all A pluses. That would be an easy choice. He's had 3 NFL quarterbacks in the same room and had no problem naming a starter back then. When he had Mac Jones and Jalen and Tua and those guys, he named a starter, and they were all really, really good. These guys may all be Bs. They may all be Bs, and it's hard to pick which one you want to roll out there.
How is he in?
Oh, they're good at running back. Jam Miller is a guy that had a really, really good fall camp. He was one of the talk of the scrimmages. Justice Haynes is a young guy a lot of people want to see. But I tell you why I think Alabama will run the ball better is because they've gotten better at offensive line. And Alabama had gotten away from the smash mouth offensive line where they impose their will on other teams. They've tried to get that back.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
What's that?
Smash mouth.
Yeah, they got away from that a little bit. And like Tyler Booker is an Alabama player that comes on our show every week. He's talked about it. J.C. Latham, who's an NFL tackle for Alabama, has talked about it, that they want to go back to being a team that people fear to play. And they feel like that they got away from that offensively under Bill O'Brien. Well,
they've always had a tremendous receiving crew.
They did, yes.
And now they're all in the pros.
That's right, they're all playing NFL.
Until last year. It's an oddity when you look at how well Nick Saban recruited that position for a decade. And he was fortunate when they played for the national championship the last time against Georgia, they were able to find a hidden gem in Jamison Williams transferring from Ohio State. But since then, last year they had no elite receivers. It doesn't look, we'll see, like they have an elite receiver this year. And that could be the big problem. It was a problem for Alabama in that national championship game once Jamison Williams went down against Georgia. It was a problem last year. It could be a problem this year. And you pair that with the fact that you had the greatest quarterback talent-wise in Alabama history last year in Bryce Young. And now you've got an unknown quarterback. Defense is going to be good. Offensive line is going to be good. Special teams is going to be great. Running back is going to be great. But receivers and quarterbacks, if they're good, if they're a B like he says, Alabama will be in the mix to win a national championship.
And like you said, that's the fourth quarter.
That's the fourth quarter. And a little history when we started the football season this year, it's been 8 years since Alabama or Clemson has not been the betting favorite to start the season in Las Vegas to win the national championship. It's Georgia this year as they go for a three-peat. That hasn't happened in the AP poll era. But usually everyone's picking Alabama and Clemson. Alabama's fallen so far off, they're second in the odds now.
Where is Clemson?
Clemson's a little further down the list.
No, I mean in general.
Oh, in general, well,
they're pretty good.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I think they're going to be good at quarterback, good at running back, and they've got a new offensive coordinator, Garrett Riley, which is Lincoln Riley's younger brother, who was at TCU last year. He was the offensive coordinator that helped TCU play for the national championship, was the hottest
a
assistant
minute.
coach out there, and Clemson hired him as offensive
Should
coordinator.
they have really been there?
I mean, they beat Michigan. So it was Michigan's fault.
So Dunaway alluded to this, but I've got a trivia question for you. If you're like at one of these dive bars, like the Red Line.
That's me. Well, back in the day, yes.
So do you know the last team to win 3 consecutive national championships in the decade?
Alabama.
No.
I buzzed in.
Notre Dame.
No, it's pre-World War II. I'll tell you that.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that's how
Notre
long it's
Dame.
been. It was not Notre Dame. You would think.
All right, I'm out of-
1930s.
I'm out of guesses.
It was actually Minnesota.
Who
back
could
in the 30s.
forget?
Yeah, I know. That's right.
The Bears.
But I think that shows you how uncommon this is. I mean, it's just a rare occurrence that a lot of people believe will happen this year.
Well, is this the year when all the changes take place in the playoffs?
That's next year.
Oh, it's not this year. So we're still 4 teams.
Yeah, conference realignment next year. You've got Oklahoma and Texas coming to the SEC. You've got USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten, 12-team playoff. A lot of stuff going on next year.
Don't be surprised if it's Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State. Wake me up if you've seen that before. It's a little familiar.
In this year's playoff.
Yeah, in this year's playoff. It's a little familiar.
Can Auburn be a surprise?
I think they're more of a next year team. I mean, I guess they could, but I think next year is the season to maybe circle.
They could get 9 wins.
They could.
They could. Everything breaks right. I think they are going to be one of those teams that is a surprise based on what their win total is and where they end up. And then I do think next year, as Brown was saying, once we get to a 12-team playoff, if you told me right now Hugh Freeze is in the 12-team playoff next year, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, Alabama and Auburn's schedule not cakey.
Not
And the
cakey at all.
SEC, they're
Next
tough.
year.
No, this
No,
year. Their
it's never
schedules are
cakey,
tough.
never cakey.
Alabama and Auburn's got some tough games
Oh,
this year.
because of the division. there.
Yeah, well, the division
Absolutely.
and Texas out of conference for Alabama.
Yeah, and Auburn's got to play Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia and Bama and
Well,
A&M.
we'll find out yesterday. Hey, thanks for being with us. This is, guys, always
Always
a pleasure to
Tommy.
be on
Thank
the
you.
opposite side of the microphone with you guys. This is Our Issues Birmingham. We'll see you next week.
I am blind, but I need not see. I know this road is there for me.